Hi, guys. Welcome. Looking forward to this conversation. I think changing and having games as part of a business conversation was never a thing before, right? That's kind of where the mindset of changing how everybody proposes for applying gamification to business models. So why don't we start off with a round of introductions while we wait for Dominique to come in, and then Jeremie, why don't you go first?
Sure. My name is Jeremie Lasnier. I am the VP of Immersive Design at COSM and previously co-founder of LiveLike. And we build VR experiences to watch live events. So we have a production team who goes to stadium, and in VR you can teleport yourself around the stadium. And we also build LED domes, which is actually the main business of COSM, to broadcast immersive content. It can go from sports, esports, to extend to science education, music shows, etc.
Great. What about you, Bryan?
Bryan, you're muted.
Yeah.
I knew I would do that. My name is Bryan Mehr, and I am a partner in a company called Avertech. We're a mixed reality agency, and we've been exploring AR for quite some time, building AR apps, and we've recently stumbled upon a method of how do you want to say, delivering AR through the browser, and we've been getting some traction, some real good traction. There's a lot of, we've gone from like the gimmick stage to relevant use cases, and we're having some repeat customers now, and it's really great. And I also am one of the owners of a company called Cyrenix. We make a popular plugin for Unity called Odin Inspector, and I'm just thrilled to be here. Thankful to be here, and this is a great space to be in. And I've been watching the webinar up to the point right now, and I've been hearing just some really, really exciting, fun things. So.
And James.
So I've been doing emerging tech for about over a decade now. I have a book on the Connect that came out in 2012. More recently, I did a course on LinkedIn Learning about programming the HoloLens. Currently, I'm CTO at a company called LabLight AR, where we're using machine learning and augmented reality in the biopharma industry.
Great. Well, I'll sort of just ask a few questions before Dominique comes in. But usually when I hear about gaming, I think about video games and interaction design. And so I'd love to hear each of your take for what you interpret everything will be gamified, especially when you think about the web and WebXR, and perhaps some of the challenges that may come there with not having as a robust programming or interaction language or ability to make things as dynamic as they may be with, say, Unity or Unreal Engine. But yeah, maybe you could talk a little bit more about what you're working on in the realm of WebXR and how you see the elements of gamification are starting to come into whatever context that you happen to be working in. You're muted there.
Okay, yeah, happy to jump on this. And so, gamification, we talk about games. We are not saying that everything is going to be a game, but the idea is with gamification to use some game mechanics within services and products that we are using on a daily basis. And it actually exists since a while now. And there is different type of services who implemented them. Famous one 10 years ago was like Foursquare with system of reward, but it was not like the best example because those bonuses doesn't create that much engagement by themselves. What's really meaningful is when you have an intrinsic motivation, meaning when you play a game, you are going to play within specific mechanics, specific rules, gameplay, and that's what creates, an emotion response from the players. And how to get this emotional response to different services and products is kind of the goal with gamification, and make sure that the users can stay engaged using them, that they have fun or have an easy way to interact with those, specifically with some products that might not sound that fun to use. And it goes from buying a flight ticket to paying your taxes, buying stocks. I mean, the list can go further. But yeah, how we could leverage those game mechanics using those services is one of the main goals that I see here, opportunities, and it already applied.
If I could
Bryan?
chime in, Kent, I think too, when it comes to gamification, like we're already seeing it. We've seen it for a while. It's been a thing, and it's our minds resonate with games and game style. Let's play or learning, or and so one of the things we've done recently, where we are seeing some success, is we're working with a property management company, and they wanted to, they're trying to lure tenants to their facility in Los Angeles, and so we came up with a little, what we're calling like a breadcrumb marketing campaign, where they come in, they can see the apartment in 3D, they can see it if they're on their PC, they can see it in 3D. There's a link to a walking tour, and so what we've done is we've made like a first-person shooter through WebGL and Unity, where they go in and they plop down into the apartment and they can walk around, and we hid like an Easter egg in there for them to find something, which is gamified, right? It's not a game, but there's some game elements within the application, and we're seeing some success. We're finally seeing it, right? Like the metrics they're pulling from it, or the data that they're pulling from it is encouraging. People are engaging with it. It's still not super intuitive, so we're working on this journey to get them there, and I think the gamified elements are helping with that.
Yeah, James?
I'll take it from a slightly different tack. I think both Jeremie and everybody else has said the important things. When I think about games in general, I always go back to the notion of education, that games originally are about transferring culture, right? So in the animal kingdom, you have bears and seals who train their cubs to hunt, but they do it in a safe space. They do it in a place where the stakes are very, very low. And in humans, it's the same reason we have games, so that we can pass on culture about how the society works. And what's different for humans, again, you lower the stakes, but it's very rules-based, because ultimately what we're trying to train children to understand is that there are rules to things. And once they understand the rules, then they know how to exist in society and so on. So that makes the notion of bringing gamification in really interesting, because we all sort of start off with games as a basis, right? And we learn to do more and more complex things, more and more complex games over time. The reason gamification is interesting in education and in other things we do that we normally think of as serious is because it lowers the stakes for us. There's a lot of things in life, taxes and other things, that are just inherently stressful, where we actually can't think clearly around them. For some people, learning languages is like that too. And a lot of the things that we learn. So by gamifying these things, we're able to put people in a different state of mind, a more relaxed state of mind, which we all understand actually makes the acquisition of knowledge much easier. When we're talking about WebXR and video games, we're actually starting off even more with games as a starting line, right? Everyone assumes that once you put a headset on or start doing video games or have all those accoutrements, that it's supposed to be a game. And so the difficulty for people who are trying to do serious games, right, is how do we use some of those elements and remove other ones so that people are actually able to learn from these things, but also understand that there's a difference between games and real life. The big thing that we're doing all the time in augmented reality is we steal a lot from first-person shooters. And the biggest thing is the heads-up display. So the trick is to take all the elements out of games like Call of Duty and so on, which are both violent and very much gamified, and sort of reduce them and call out the pieces that we actually need to help people succeed rather than distract them.
Awesome. And I just wanted to welcome Dominique and give you an opportunity to introduce yourself. And I don't know how much you've been able to catch, but we were just introducing ourselves and kind of doing a first take of gamification. But yeah, why don't you go ahead and take it over, and you can introduce yourself and then moderate the rest of the panel.
Thank you so much. Yeah, my name is Dominique Wu, founder of Hummingbird Stay. Yeah, so yeah, thank you for joining our panel. And we have 3 speakers. It seems like everyone has all have their introductions. So yeah, we have 4 topics. So first one, kind of like, can we have a little bit of kind of intro, like what are games, what's gamification? I think we've already covered it, but if you want to have some thoughts. Yeah, any thoughts?
I think we covered it, yeah.
Oh, you covered it. Okay,
Yeah.
So the second one will be, who is the audience for gamification? Yeah, so who wants to start? Maybe Jeremie?
Yeah, I think it's, it can be pretty wide. It completely depends on which product you want to augment. And of course, if you think about games or video games specifically for WebXR, you are going to think more about younger generation or millennial, Gen Z, based on their culture and interests. But and also specifically what type of experiences where gamification can be leveraged. James talked about education, for example, and there is definitely a lot we can do to make sure that students can stay engaged. They are going to come back to the experience as they can track, their progress. And one of the interesting thing is to reduce typically the friction within those product or services that we are going to use. And that's why I guess
So any other thoughts for who's the audience for gamification? Jeremie just said, yeah, go ahead.
Dominique, if I could say, I just narrow it down, like maybe a specific group. Like if the question is who is the audience, I'd like to talk about students, about people that are learning, right? And so I've been involved in some applications in the past with a mixed reality training application that we built. And it was a very complex maintenance procedure that someone had to perform. And it was an organization where they only had 2 people in the whole entire country that can do this procedure, right? So they came to us, asked us to make a training application that could bring a brand new recruit or a brand new employee, and they could get into this. We use the HoloLens for this, but they could get into it, go through the training application, and be able to maintenance this very complex device. And we did that, and it worked perfectly. We actually had to go on site. If the person had to use the headset, brand new employee, and then perform exactly what the deliverable was, and they did it. They did it without flaw. And while it was a live like deliverable. So it's pretty fascinating. But I also, in building the application, realized how powerful the medium is, right? So we're used to seeing things in 3D. We're used to seeing depth, right? And so when you can get into an experience, especially when you're trying to learn, now you're seeing depth. You remember it better, right? So like when I know how to maintenance that device now because I worked on it and I was so immersed in it while I was working on it. And I've seen that over and over again. I'm seeing that with everything I do when it comes to this immersive tech. It's like somehow my brain resonates with depth, with 3D. It's what I see every day. It's how I exist in the real world. So it just makes sense. Taking 2D to 3D and then building these applications we're building and we're starting to see come into the market. It's really great. It's so powerful. And I feel like I can't wait for my kids to start learning this way because I've just seen it. I've seen it how it works.
Thank you for Bryan's talk. And I totally agree that 3D will give us more immersive experience, especially, for example, some people, like for learning experience, some people are more kinematic, right? They need to use their hands, love to do like more DIY stuff. So there's a saying or the study says that why IKEA, people are crazy about IKEA because it's do it yourself, right? People are more attached to something that they kind of hands-on build on themselves. So gamification also help them to have more hands-on experience. So yeah. So as for the target audience, we know there are a wide range of target audience, such as millennials, and just like Bryan said that a lot of students can use it. And how about you, James? Do you have any thoughts for the audience for gamification?
Well, I do. I wish. So Bryan brought up a great point before. So let me set it up and let Bryan finish it, which is part of this is intergenerational also. We have a generation of millennials, but really it's a generation after that's been raised up on video games and social media. And so part of what's going on is gamification is a way of reaching out to them in a way that otherwise we're not able to in the same way that, let's say, our parents' generation did. And let me go ahead and hand off to you, Bryan.
Yeah, I can definitely add to that. I think, even just watching my own kids, they're teenagers, and that's their language. It's the language they speak. And so it makes so much even more sense to gamify things, or to bring this into the real world, or to the business world, or outside of traditional games, right? One of the things, I can bring up a specific example of gamification. We have a Discord channel. It's pretty popular for our Serenix company. And we created a bot and a leaderboard, and we have people in our community that support the rest of the community. So we have several people that have jumped in. They're on there all the time. They're supporting our community more than we are in some instances. And so we created this cool point system, and they compete. They compete to support the rest of the community, which is beautiful. And in fact, we just hired one of the guys. And yeah, that's a good example, I think, of gamification in a non sort of gaming form. So, but yeah, that's the language of the young people today. I think as they become business owners and leaders in the future, this is the language they speak, and so we should be catering to it.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, so I would say like leaderboard points or badges are always like really good for those like more common gamification elements for education. And Jeremie, do you have any thoughts for the audience for gamification?
And I apologize, I don't know what happened, but I might have, I just got disconnected. So, sorry, what was the question?
Oh, the question is, what's the audience for gamification?
Yeah, so I got
any thoughts? Yeah,
I got blocked, but yeah, I was just mentioning about Gen Z millennials, but honestly, it can work for any type of generation, and make less intimidating some services. I think I brought up those examples before, but if you think about paying your taxes, it can everybody is concerned. If you want to invest in stocks, a lot of people are more and more interested, and younger generation are more interested because there is easy app to use. If you think about Robinhood, they gamified the way you are gonna buy stocks, and you just have to swipe up. TurboTax is just helping you to go step by step and motivating you to file your taxes with a beautiful user experience, right? So that's why I think it's going to continue to extend, but maybe early users are more younger generations that were used to play video games. And I'm saying this while it's been a few decades now that games are around. So I believe it's going to continue to be even wider.
Yeah, and I just learned that ADHD in 2020, the FDA just approved the first prescription digital games as therapy for ADHD people to help them focus and to help them to be more productive. Because we all know that ADHD people are, attention deficiency, so they couldn't really pay attention to something too long. But with the help of gamification, they can be more concentrated and be more productive. Yeah, so let's jump into the number 4 topic. How will everything be gamified in the WebXR? So yeah, Jeremie, do you want to start?
Yeah. So I mean, the beauty, I would say, of WebXR is the fact that you can share one link to access to an experience. And so far, yes, we have VR, AR, and even with mobile AR, there is ways to create experiences for specific link. But WebXR is way more powerful, and you can just reach out to way more users, and not just through a virtual reality headset, right? And there is many countries or even people who don't have those headsets, so you can give them through a link that they can use on their computer, on their phone, a great idea of what could be the experience. And we could all collaborate within the same experience while using different devices. So I think that's pretty powerful. And typically the experience that we are working around the sports content, we are doing some R&D around the WebXR to explore how to share it through a simple link instead of having to apply to the Oculus or iOS, Android, and get verified and checked, etc. It's like pretty heavy process. While now, in just one click, you can share your experience. So that's definitely a main component that I believe can make this space, XR space, more mainstream.
Yeah, James, do you have anything you wanna talk about how will everything be gamified in the WebXR?
Just as Jeremie said, basically WebXR is going to lower that friction so that more people are able to enter VR and AR, and that's a great thing. But I'm just going to sort of take that as assumed now that that's going to happen, and bring up the problem that not all gamification is good, right? So recently, or actually a few months ago, I put together a Prusa 3D printer. It ended up taking 5 days, but they have a beautiful printed manual. And one of the gamification elements they have in there, which is a short-term reward system to encourage you to go on, is they give you a bag of gummy bears. And every time you finish a chapter of assembling the 3D printer, you get to reward yourself with a certain number of gummy bears. And it's just a really nice touch. It's playful, and it actually makes it easier to continue through the process, which is supposed to take 2 days. And for me, it took a week to complete, but that's just me. But then I was also thinking, I was also doing some crypto coin last week and went to a popular exchange, managed to get my purchase done. But then they were encouraging me to go through these lessons they had. And you've probably seen this before. Duolingo has it. Theirs is really good. But in this case, they're encouraging you to buy additional financial instruments and to invest more money. But they're treating it as if it's a game, right? And when you're spending money like that, it really isn't a game. Investment shouldn't be a game. And for me, that was really troubling. So I don't know if you have Netflix or have seen the show called The Squid Game. And that's a beautiful example of how not all games are fun and not all games are actually good, but all games are addictive, right? That's the whole point of them and why people are trying to use gamification for advertising and to retain users and so on. So just like in other fields like machine learning, we have, currently an ethics of AI and desire to do ethical AI. We should also be interested in doing ethical gamification and be aware of the downsides that sometimes gamification isn't in the interest of the user, it's in somebody else's interests. And I would call that squid gamification, and that's just something we need to look out for.
That's the new term.
Yeah,
Bryan.
I'm trying to make it happen, but it hasn't happened yet.
The next year's topic, squid gamification.
Squid gamification.
I think those are great points. I think the idea, the friction, you brought up friction, and something in games is another element of games is storytelling, right? And I think I love this medium for that reason, like storytelling, and not only because you can tell the story within the application, but people will tell the story after too, right? So there's that element, but I do think friction is a big part of it. I also think the ethics thing is a really important thing to bring up. But there is so much friction still. We see it, but I think conferences like this and the people that I see, the things that they're doing, we're making really fast, great progress in eliminating that friction, so that it's becoming more and more widely adopted. But I think we have work to do there for sure. Gamification helps too, right? I mean, it helps because we just get it. And if we can make it fun, if we can try to achieve a goal by making it more fun or more experiential for someone, then it just makes so much sense. And I think and when we ask the question, how, I think it works. Like, it's really good. It works really well. It's very effective. So it's going to get out, and we're the ones that are driving it to the market. And that's pretty exciting. It's pretty fun.
Yeah. And as for gamification, the interesting thing is that there's a book called The Deliberate Fun, written by Dr. Jonathan Peters. Yeah, in this book, he has kind of like used the previous psychologist using kind of categorize people into different personalities. And by different personalities, what types of gamification will attract them or will trigger them to do something. For example, points. Points will trigger someone who loves saving stuff, right? Badges for someone who loves the honor, right? And leaderboards to someone who loves to compete. So I find out that is very interesting, right? For, I don't know, for business, right? To kind of study people and trying to get hooked some certain types of their service for people to get in and keep doing the things that they want. So if you dive into the psychology part of the gamification, you will be amazed that people can be manipulated by, by those mechanics. But also, I would say it's not good or bad, right? It depends on how we use it, right? So yeah, we wish everyone can use it in a good way, so we can make everything looks great. Like the world will be better just because of gamification. Yeah, cool. So anyone want to give the last minute or of the how well everything be gamified in WebXR? Or I saw there are some comments on the chat. Anyone want to jump in and answer or kind of talk about some topics that our audience gave us or questions?
Just one thing to rebound on what you were mentioning. Everybody who is working in this space, there is this ethical question, right, of making sure we are creating experiences that we all want to use. And if you imagine, in the future having those AR glasses that big companies are working on that are coming, it will mean, having augmentation everywhere you go in front of your face, right? And you don't want to have typically an advertising or a video like you might have on YouTube where you have to wait, you have to click 5 seconds. You don't want to stop in the street, basically, to watch an advertising and to break the experience you were in, whatever you were doing, right? So how to make sure we're creating something that's meaningful for us is going to be a big deal, and creating some sort of overall rules or some sort of standard of interaction similar to, the past decades that happen in VR, where we tend to create some specific rules. We're going to have to face the same thing in WebXR and within their dedicated areas, right? And AR, there is a lot that needs to be done on that front.
Yeah. So I saw the book, and if you want to read another book, I find out it's amazing for gamification. It's called Actionable Gamification, written by Yukai Chu. So you can go to his blog. He pretty much put everything on his blog, but I find out the book is amazing.
Awesome. Well, that's right at the end of the time here. So there's a nice exploration of all the different aspects of gamification. And I expect to see a lot more of it. We haven't seen as much gamification, especially in the WebXR space, just because of the programming languages and everything else. But certainly a lot of great examples here and broader discussion. And I look forward to where this continues to go and evolve and to see more fusion of all this different stuff that you're talking about. So Dominique and the rest of the panel, thanks for your time here and for the discussion. And I think we're, so goodbye, everybody.
Yeah, bye.